I woke up to my phone's brightness and the fact that my neck hurt. Again. The Ford Escape wasn't built for sleeping in the back, but I'd gotten decent at it. Duffel bag as a pillow, jacket bunched under my hip. Windows cracked just enough that condensation didn't fog everything up by morning. Except it wasn't morning yet. 3:47. I'd opened my bank app without thinking about it. That was the new routine. Check the balance. Watch it not move. $2,118. Same as yesterday. Same as the day before that. Micron had paid out my last check 3 weeks ago, and unemployment was still tangled up in some verification process I didn't fully understand. I'd called twice. Both times I got a recording that said to expect delays. The Costco parking lot was quiet. A couple of RVs at the far end, probably doing the same thing I was. Security drove through every few hours, but they didn't care as long as you were gone by opening. I'd learned that the first night. I closed the app and opened my messages. Ruby had sent something around midnight. You still in Boise? My sister. She lived in Atlanta, worked some tech support job that actually kept her employed. We didn't talk a ton, but she checked in, especially after I'd told her about the layoff. I typed back. Yeah. Heading out soon, though. Taking a job in Montana. Didn't mention the part where I'd been sleeping in the car. Didn't mention that the job was temporary maintenance work and I had no idea what happened after it ended. Her reply came back faster than I expected. She was probably up late. Montana? Like what kind of job maintenance thing? West Yellowstone. Starts in a few days. Okay, sounds random. You good? I stared at that for a second. Yeah, road reset. Figure it out as I go. Road reset. I just made that up, but it sounded better than, I'm broke and running out of options. LOL, okay. Let me know when you get there. Will do. I set the phone down and sat up. My back cracked in 2 places. The parking lot lights made everything look orange and flat. A truck rolled past on the main road, and I waited until the sound faded before I climbed into the front seat. I didn't want to be here when security came around again. They'd been fine so far, but I wasn't interested in pushing it. I started the engine and pulled out. The Indeed posting had come up 2 days ago while I was sitting in a Starbucks, stealing Wi-Fi and pretending to be someone who had a plan. Temporary maintenance worker. Xanterra, West Yellowstone, MT. Immediate start. Housing not provided. Must secure lodging within 1 week of hire. That last part was the kicker. A week to find a place. But it was work. It started fast. And it meant I might stop sleeping in the Costco parking lot. I'd applied right there, sitting next to the bathroom with a drip coffee I'd stretched out for 2 hours. The application was basic. Name, experience, availability. I didn't have a lot of maintenance experience, but I'd worked enough grunt jobs to know how to bullshit my way through the questions. They'd emailed me back 6 hours later. We'd like to offer you the position. Start date, Monday, March 6th. Please confirm receipt and your anticipated arrival date. I'd confirmed. Told them I'd be there by the 5th. That gave me 3 days to drive and find a place. Verbo wasn't great. Most of the listings in West Yellowstone were either booked solid or wanted something like $150 a night, which would burn through my cash in 2 weeks. I scrolled for a while, filtering by price, and finally found one that didn't make my stomach hurt. Cabin 3, Canyon Street, 49 night. Single room, basic amenities, private entry. The photos were bad. One shot of a narrow bed, one of a corner with a microwave and a hot plate. The cabin was behind a real estate office, which I guess explained why it was cheap. Probably some leftover property they weren't using. The host name was Sierra Powell. No reviews, no profile picture. Just a name and a listing. I didn't love it, but $49 a night was doable. I could make that work for a couple weeks, maybe a month if I was careful. I booked it, sent the payment, got an automated confirmation with an address, 32 Canyon Street, and a note that said check-in was after 3 p.m. That was it. I got back on I-84 just before 5 a.m. The sky was still dark, but there was a little bit of gray starting to creep in at the edges. The kind of light that meant sunrise wasn't far off but hadn't decided to commit yet. I had a half tank of gas, enough to get me a decent stretch before I needed to stop again. The road was empty, just me and a couple of semis hauling who knows what toward Twin Falls. I stayed in the right lane and kept it steady. No reason to rush. No reason to burn gas I didn't need to burn. I kept thinking about the cabin. $49 a night. One room. Basic amenities. I didn't know what that actually meant. Could be fine. Could be a dump. Probably a dump, but it was a roof. It was a bed that wasn't the back of my car. And it was cheap enough that I could stretch my cash until the first paycheck hit. I told myself it was going to be clean and simple. Get to West Yellowstone, check in, start the job, work, get paid, figure out the next step. Except the timeline felt tight. A week to secure housing, and I'd just barely scraped something together. The job was temporary, which meant it ended. I didn't know when. Could be a month, could be 3. And after that, I didn't have an answer for that part. The road stretched out ahead, flat and gray in the early light. I kept my hands on the wheel and my eyes on the center line. This was going to work. It had to. I pulled off I-84 around 10:30 for gas and coffee. The Chevron sat near Mountain Home, one of those stations that looked the same as every other station between here and anywhere. Pumps out front. Convenience store attached. Prices posted on a sign tall enough to see from the highway. The pump ran slow. I watched the numbers climb and tried not to think about how much of my balance was draining into the tank. $18. $22. I stopped it at 30, even though the tank wasn't full. That'd get me most of the way there. I could fill up again in West Yellowstone if I needed to. Inside, the place smelled like cleaning solution and old hot dogs. The kind of smell that sticks in gas stations no matter what time of day. I grabbed a large coffee from the self-serve counter near the back. Black. Added 1 cream, because the coffee looked darker than usual, and I didn't want to deal with something that bitter on an empty stomach. The clerk stood behind the counter scanning lottery tickets for an older guy in a Carhartt jacket. The clerk's name tag said Roman. Short black hair, polo shirt with the Chevron logo. He looked maybe mid-20s. Friendly enough face, the kind of person who probably said, "Have a good one," to every customer without thinking about it. The lottery guy finished up and left. I set the coffee on the counter. "Just this?" Roman asked. "Yeah." He rang it up. $2.49. I handed him 3 singles. He gave me the change and dropped the receipt in my palm without asking if I wanted it. "Thanks," I said. "You got it." I took the coffee back to the car and sat in the driver's seat with the door open, feet on the pavement. The coffee was too hot to drink right away. I held the cup and felt the heat through the paper, watched a semi pull in on the other side of the pumps. My head hurt a little. Not a full headache, just that dull pressure behind my eyes that comes from not sleeping great and driving too long without a real break. I pressed my thumb against my temple and waited for the coffee to cool. I checked my phone while I waited. Signal sat at 2 bars, which was fine. Better than nothing. No new messages. I opened the email from Xanterra again, even though I'd already read it twice. Start date Monday, March 6th. Report to the main office at 8 a.m. Bring ID and direct deposit information. I had the ID. Direct deposit was easy enough. The hard part was going to be showing up and pretending I had my life together enough to hold down a job. The coffee cooled enough to drink. I took a sip, then another. It wasn't good, but it was hot and it had caffeine. That was enough. I set the cup in the holder, closed the door, and pulled back onto the highway. The signal dropped to 1 bar about 20 minutes later. Then it came back. Then it dropped again. That kept happening for the next couple hours. I figured it was just the area, mountains or towers or whatever made signals cut in and out. By late afternoon, I hit West Yellowstone. The town looked small, real small. A main drag with shops and motels, side streets branching off into residential areas that didn't go far before they hit trees. Everything had that ski town feel. Wood siding, big windows, signs advertising rentals and tours. It was only 4 in the afternoon, but the light already looked tired. That flat gray kind of daylight that happens before the sun actually sets, but after it stops feeling like midday. I followed the directions from the Verbo confirmation. Canyon Street was 3 blocks off the main road, narrow and quiet. The real estate office sat at number 32, a single-story building with dark windows and a small parking lot out front. I pulled in next to the building and cut the engine. No cars, no lights, nothing. The place looked shut down. Not just closed for the day, shut down. Shut down, shut down. The kind of closed that made you wonder if anyone actually worked there or if they'd just left the building standing and moved on. I sat there for a minute, staring at the dark windows. Behind the office, I could see the cabins, 3 of them, lined up in a row. Small structures, maybe 12 feet wide each. They had the same wood siding as the office, same dark windows. No lights on in any of them. The lockbox was supposed to be on cabin 3. That's what the confirmation email said. Lockbox mounted beside the door. Code same as the last 4 digits of my phone number. I got out of the car and walked around the side of the office. Gravel crunched under my boots. The air smelled cold and clean, that sharp bite you get in mountain towns even when it's not freezing. Cabin 3 was the one on the far right. The lockbox hung next to the door, just like the email said. I punched in the code. The box opened. Inside was a single key on a plain metal ring. I took the key and tried the door. It stuck. I pushed harder. The door scraped against the frame and finally gave, swinging inward with a sound that made me think the wood had swollen from moisture or cold, or both. The smell hit me as soon as the door opened. Stale air. That flat, cardboard kind of staleness that builds up when a place has been closed for a while. Not moldy, not rotten, just old and still. I stepped inside and flipped the light switch by the door. A single bulb came on overhead. 40 watts, maybe. Enough to see by, barely. The cabin matched the photos. 1 room, narrow bed against the left wall, small corner setup on the right, with a microwave, hot plate, and a dorm fridge about 2 feet tall. A table sat in the middle of the room with 1 chair. The bathroom door stood half open in the back corner. Everything looked clean enough. Dated, but clean. The bedspread was that rough polyester kind you see in cheap motels. The walls were bare except for a single framed print of a mountain landscape that could have been anywhere. On the table sat an envelope. White, letter-sized. My name written on the front in block letters. Logan Gomez. I picked it up, not sealed, just tucked closed. I pulled out the paper inside, 1 page, printed. The title at the top said, Rules for Cabin 3, in bold. I scanned the list. Do not use the bathroom fan. The wiring is old. Use the window for ventilation. If someone knocks twice, do not answer. If someone knocks 3 times, check the peephole first. Close the curtain after sunset. There is no street light, and the window reflects. The propane heater is backup only. If it clicks without producing heat, turn it off immediately and text this number. A number I didn't recognize, not Sierra's. At 2:17 a.m., run the generator outside for exactly 7 minutes. Set a timer. Do not skip this. I read it again. The instructions felt way too detailed. Not normal house rules, not even normal weird rental rules. These were specific in a way that made my neck tighten. I set the paper down on the table and pulled out my phone. 1 bar of signal. I opened Verbo and navigated to my messages with Sierra Powell. Typed out, just checked in, got the rules. Can you call me? Want to clarify a few things. I hit send. The message sat there with a little spinning circle next to it. Then, message failed to send. I tried again. Same thing. I checked the signal. Still 1 bar, but it wasn't moving. Just sitting there, a single sliver that apparently wasn't enough to get anything through. I walked to the window and held the phone up. Still 1 bar. I opened the door and stepped outside, holding the phone toward the road. 1 bar. No change. Great. I walked back to the car and grabbed my duffel from the back seat. That was pretty much everything I owned that mattered. Couple changes of clothes, toothbrush, phone charger, a folder with my ID and social security card, and the printout of my direct deposit form for Xanterra. The bag wasn't heavy. I probably could have fit more in there if I'd had more to bring. Inside, I dropped it on the bed. The mattress didn't bounce much, just kind of absorbed the weight and settled. The propane heater sat against the wall near the foot of the bed, one of those standing units with the ceramic plates behind a metal grate. Looked old, but not ancient. I crouched down to check it. The rules said it was backup only, and if it clicked without heat, I should turn it off and text that number. The plug was already in the wall outlet. I stared at that for a second. I hadn't turned it on. Hadn't touched it, but someone had plugged it in before I got here, or maybe it had been plugged in for weeks. There wasn't a switch on the unit itself, just the plug, so technically it was live, just not running yet. I reached out and touched the metal casing, cold. Nothing warm, no hum, no sound. I left it alone. The bathroom was in the back corner. I pushed the door open all the way. Small, toilet, sink, a shower stall with a plastic curtain that had seen better days. No window. The fan switch was right next to the light switch on the wall outside the door, which seemed like a weird setup. Usually the fan's inside the bathroom, right? I flipped the light on. Fluorescent tube overhead buzzed for half a second, then settled into that flat white glow that makes everything look worse. The mirror had some kind of brown spotting around the edges. Water damage, maybe. I reached up and touched the fan switch without flipping it. Warm. Not hot, just warm, like something had been running recently and the plastic hadn't cooled all the way down yet. But I hadn't turned the fan on. Nobody'd been in here. I pulled my hand back. The rules said don't use the fan because of old wiring. Use the window instead. Fine. Wasn't planning to use it anyway. I left the bathroom light on for another few seconds, just looking at the space. Nothing obviously wrong. Just a small, dated bathroom that smelled faintly like old tile grout. I hit the light switch and pulled the door mostly shut. Didn't latch it, just left it cracked a few inches. The cabin felt colder than it should have. I checked my phone. 4:37 p.m. Still had a few hours before sunset, but the light outside was already that dull gray you get in mountain towns when the sun's behind the trees or the clouds or whatever. My stomach made a noise. I hadn't eaten since the gas station coffee and a pack of peanut butter crackers somewhere around noon. There wasn't any food in the cabin. The fridge was empty, and I didn't have anything in the car except an old water bottle. I needed to eat. And I needed Wi-Fi that actually worked so I could check my bank app, maybe send Ruby a message so she wouldn't worry. I grabbed my phone and wallet and stepped outside. Locked the door behind me, tested the handle twice. The key went into my front pocket. The Starbucks was inside the Holiday Inn, which I'd passed on the way into town. About a 10-minute walk, maybe less. The main drag wasn't busy. A couple of cars parked outside a pizza place, one SUV idling in front of a souvenir shop. Most of the businesses looked like they were either closed for the season or just waiting for tourists to show up. The Holiday Inn lobby smelled like coffee and cleaning spray. The Starbucks counter was off to the left, tucked into a corner near some armchairs and a fake fireplace. Not a real Starbucks, I figured. One of those license things hotels do. A woman stood behind the counter wiping down the espresso machine. Mid-20s, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing the green apron. She glanced up when I walked over. "Hey," she said, "what can I get you?" "Just a tall coffee. Dark roast if you've got it." "Pike Place okay?" Yeah. She grabbed a cup and filled it from the air pot behind her. Moved fast, efficient, probably done this 1,000 times. Anything else? That's it. $3.25. I handed her a 5. She gave me change, dropped the coins into my palm without counting them out loud. I appreciated that. Thanks, I said. She nodded, already turning back to the espresso machine. I took the coffee to one of the armchairs near the fake fireplace and pulled out my phone. The Wi-Fi network popped up right away. Holiday Inn guest. No password. I connected and waited for it to load. Took about 10 seconds, then everything came through. 2 messages from Ruby, both sent earlier today. First one, LMK when you get there. Second one sent an hour later. You good? I typed back, here, got a place. Starting work Monday. Sent fine, no delay. I opened my banking app. It loaded slower than the messages, but it loaded. Balance, $2,068. I did the math in my head. I'd paid $30 for gas this morning, $3.25 just now for coffee, $49 last night for the cabin through Verbo. That was $82.25 total. Started with $2,118. Should have been $235 and change, except I'd also bought those crackers, and there was probably some pending charge I forgot about. Maybe the Verbo payment hadn't fully cleared yet. Sometimes it took a day. I stared at the number, $2,068. Close enough. I closed the app and drank the coffee. It was fine. Not great, but fine. Hot, at least. Ruby hadn't replied yet. I figured she was either at work or busy. She'd see it eventually. I stayed in the chair for another 20 minutes, just sitting there with my phone and the coffee. Nobody bothered me. A couple walked through the lobby pulling suitcases, and an older guy in a puffer jacket asked the front desk something about checkout times. The barista, her name tag said Shelby, cleaned the counter and restocked the cup lids. When the coffee was gone, I stood up and tossed the cup in the trash near the door. Outside, the light was starting to fade. Not sunset yet, but close. The sky had that look where you couldn't tell if it was clouds or just the way dusk worked up here. I started walking back toward Canyon Street. I made it about 2 blocks before I noticed the truck. White pickup. Older model, maybe a Ford or a Chevy. Hard to tell from the front. It was crawling along behind me, maybe 20 feet back, going the same speed I was walking. At first I figured the driver was just looking for an address or trying to read the street signs. But I crossed to the other side of the road, and the truck stayed behind me. Didn't speed up, didn't pass, just kept pace. I slowed down a little. The truck slowed down too. I stopped in front of a closed gift shop and pulled out my phone, pretending to check something. The truck rolled to a stop about 15 feet behind me. Engine idling. I couldn't see the driver through the windshield. Too much glare from the sky. I waited 10 seconds. The truck didn't move. I put my phone away and started walking again. So did the truck. My heart kicked up a little, that tight feeling you get when you're not sure if something's wrong or if you're just being paranoid. I kept my pace steady, didn't look back. Canyon Street was only a few more blocks. The truck followed the whole way. When I turned onto Canyon, it slowed at the corner, then kept going straight down the main road. Didn't turn, just rolled past like nothing happened. I stood there for a second, watching the tail lights disappear. Probably nothing. Probably just someone driving slow because they were lost or tired or whatever. But it bugged me a little. Back at cabin 3, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was still stale. I should have cracked the window before I left. I checked my phone. 5:42 p.m. Sunset was probably around 6, maybe 6:15. The rules said close the curtain after sunset. No streetlight, window reflects. I walked over to the window and looked out. The real estate office was dark. The other 2 cabins were dark. No cars in the lot except mine. No movement anywhere. I pulled the curtain shut. Thin fabric, kind of rough. It didn't block the light completely, but it covered the glass. I turned on the overhead light and left it on. Normally, I'd wait until it was actually dark, save the electricity or whatever, but I didn't feel like sitting in the near dark tonight. I sat down at the table and pulled out my phone. Still had the 1 bar of signal, but messages weren't going through. I tried opening a browser. It spun for about 30 seconds, then timed out. I set the phone on the table and looked around the cabin. The overhead bulb made everything look yellow and washed out. The mountain print on the wall, the polyester bedspread, the propane heater standing silent against the wall with its plug in the outlet. I should have been tired. I'd driven most of the day, slept like garbage in the Costco lot the night before, but I just felt wired. That thing with the truck didn't help. I got up and checked the door lock. Still locked. I tested the handle. Solid. The peephole was one of those old brass ones, probably installed decades ago. I put my eye up to it. Fisheye view of the gravel path outside, the corner of the real estate office, part of cabin 2. No movement, no people, no white pickup. I stepped back and sat on the bed. The mattress was firmer than I expected. Not comfortable, just firm. The cabin was quiet, no hum from the fridge, no traffic noise from the road, nothing. Just that dead kind of silence you get in places that don't have enough people. I stayed on the bed for a while, checked my phone a couple more times, no new messages. Still 1 bar. Around 7, I ate the other pack of crackers I'd left in my jacket pocket. 6 crackers, peanut butter between them. That was dinner. By 8, the light outside was completely gone. I stood at the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to look out. The glass reflected the overhead bulb and my own face, pale and tired looking. Past that, nothing but black. No street lights, no porch lights on the other cabins. Just dark. I let the curtain fall back into place. 9 p.m. came slow. I was sitting on the bed, scrolling through old emails on my phone. Anything to pass the time. When the heater clicked. Sharp, metallic sound like a relay switching on. I looked up. The heater was still just sitting there against the wall, plug in the outlet. But now I could hear a faint hum. Then a low whir, like a fan starting up. Warm air blew out through the grate. Not hot, lukewarm, like someone breathing on you from a foot away. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then another click, louder this time, and the air stopped. The hum died. I stood up and walked over to it, crouched down in front of the grate. No heat coming out now. I put my hand near the ceramic plates. Barely warm. The metal casing was still cool. Another click. I flinched. Same sound, same spot. But no air this time. No hum. Just the click, like something trying to turn on and failing. The rules said if it clicks without heat, unplug it and text the number. I reached down and pulled the plug from the wall. The click stopped. I stayed there for a second, holding the plug in my hand. Waited to see if it would make the sound again. Nothing. I set the plug on the floor next to the outlet and stood up. My phone was on the bed. I picked it up and opened my messages, found the rules document I'd photographed earlier, zoomed in on the phone number at the bottom. 1 bar of signal. I typed, heater clicked with no heat, unplugged it. Hit send. Message failed. I tried again, same result. I walked to the window with the phone, pulled the curtain back a few inches. Still 1 bar. Tried sending again, failed. I let the curtain drop and turned back toward the bed. That's when I heard it. Click, faint. Same metallic sound, but not from the heater. I looked at the wall outlet where the heater had been plugged in. The plug was still on the floor next to it, not connected to anything. Click. Definitely coming from the outlet, or inside the wall, hard to tell. I walked over and crouched down again, putting my ear close to the outlet cover. Click. Quiet, almost like it was farther back now, deeper in the wall. Then nothing. I stayed there, listening. Counted to 30 in my head. Silence. I stood up slow. My neck felt tight, that same tension from earlier when I'd read the rules the first time. The cabin was too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, the faint creak of the floorboards when I shifted my weight. I sat back down on the bed and kept my eyes on the outlet. The plug was still on the floor. The heater was off. Nothing was connected. But I kept waiting for the sound to come back. It didn't. I checked my phone. 9:14 p.m. The rules said run the generator at 2:17 a.m. Exactly 7 minutes. Don't skip it. That was 5 hours away. I lay back on the bed, still dressed, shoes still on. Kept my phone in my hand. The overhead light stayed on. I wasn't turning it off. I watched the door, watched the outlet, watched the window with the curtain pulled shut. The rules had seemed weird when I first read them, specific and strange, the kind of thing you laugh about later when you're somewhere else. But sitting there in the cabin with the heater unplugged and the clicking moved into the wall and the 5 hours stretching ahead of me, they didn't seem weird anymore. They seemed like the kind of thing you follow exactly. I was sitting on the bed, scrolling through nothing when the first knock came. 2 hits. Clean. Deliberate. I froze with my thumb still on the screen. The rules said don't answer if someone knocks twice. Don't even get up, just sit there and wait. I set the phone down slow and listened. Nothing. My breath felt too loud in my chest. I counted to 30 in my head, then 50, then gave up counting because the numbers weren't helping. Then it came again, 2 knocks, same rhythm, same force. I didn't move. A scrape followed, something dragging across the porch boards. Not a boot turning, not gravel shifting, something heavier, uneven, like someone stepped wrong or pulled something sideways that shouldn't be pulled. Then a 3rd knock landed, harder than the first 2. Single impact. The rules said if someone knocks 3 times, check the peephole first. But that 3rd knock didn't feel right. It felt too late, too separate from the first 2. I stood up anyway and crossed to the door, keeping my footsteps light even though I knew whoever was out there already knew I was inside. The overhead light was still on from earlier. I leaned toward the peephole and pressed my eye against the brass ring. Nothing. Just the gravel path and the corner of the real estate office and darkness beyond that. No person. No shape. No movement. I stayed there for probably 2 minutes with my eye against the peephole until my vision started to blur and I had to blink. When I pulled back, my neck was stiff and my hands were cold. I turned on the bathroom light. Then I turned on the lamp on the table even though it was dim and barely added anything. I wanted every bulb in the cabin burning. I dragged the chair from the table and positioned it facing the door, then sat down hard enough that the legs scraped against the floor. My phone was still on the bed. I didn't get it. I just sat there watching the door. The doorknob twitched. Not a full turn. Just a small rotation, maybe a 1/4 inch, like someone testing whether it was locked. The brass caught the light and shifted, then went still. I didn't breathe. The knob didn't move again. I kept my eyes on it anyway, watching for the smallest shift, the tiniest rotation that would mean someone was still trying. But it stayed motionless. The quiet stretched out. My legs started to ache first. I was sitting too rigid, knees locked, feet flat on the floor like I was bracing for something. I shifted my weight and felt the tension release in my calves, then tighten again when I settled back into position. I checked my phone once without getting up. 11:43. No messages, still 1 bar. I set it face down on my thigh and kept watching the door. The minutes felt wrong, too slow. I'd glance at the phone and see 11:51 and feel like 20 minutes should have passed, but it had only been 8. At some point I realized I was thirsty. My mouth was dry and my throat felt tight. But I didn't have any water in the cabin and I wasn't about to go outside to my car. I stayed in the chair. By midnight, my lower back was cramping and I had to stand up and stretch. I kept my eyes on the door the whole time. rolling my shoulders and bending forward until my spine cracked twice. Then I sat back down. Nothing happened. No knocks, no scraping, no movement outside the window. Just the hum of the overhead light and the faint buzz from the bathroom fluorescent and my own breathing. I stayed in the chair until my alarm went off at 2:16. The sound cut through the silence, and I jolted hard enough that my knee hit the table leg. I grabbed my phone and silenced it, then sat there for 5 seconds, letting my heart rate drop. 2:16. I had to run the generator at 2:17 for exactly 7 minutes. I stood up and my legs felt stiff and slow. I unlocked the door, tested the handle, then pulled it open. Cold air hit me first. Probably mid-30s. I should have grabbed my jacket, but I didn't want to waste time. The generator sat about 15 feet from the cabin, a small Honda unit with a pull cord and a fuel tank that looked half full. I'd seen it earlier when I first arrived, but hadn't touched it. I walked over, crouched down, and checked the choke and fuel valve. Both looked fine. I set my phone on the ground with the timer app open, then gripped the pull cord and yanked. It caught on the first pull. The engine turned over clean and settled into a steady rattling hum. Not loud, just persistent. I hit start on the timer, 2:17 exactly. I stood up and looked around. The real estate office was maybe 40 feet behind me, past a few trees and a stretch of gravel. The windows had been dark since I'd arrived. Then at 2:17 sharp, a light came on inside. Just one. A fluorescent strip, pale and greenish, visible through the front window on the left side of the building. I stared at it. No movement inside. No shadow crossing the glass. Just the light, steady and cold. I walked a few steps closer, keeping the generator in my peripheral vision. The office had 2 front windows, both with blinds half drawn. The light was coming from somewhere in the back, spilling forward into the front room. I stopped at the edge of the gravel and watched. Nothing moved. No one walked past the window. No shape shifted in the back. The light just stayed on, fluorescent and flat, like the kind you see in a break room or storage closet. I checked my phone, 4 minutes left. I kept watching. The building looked the same as it had earlier. Dark wood siding, small parking lot, no cars, no sign that anyone worked there or had worked there in weeks. But the light was on. I glanced back at the generator, still running smooth. Timer showed 2 minutes. When I looked back at the office, the light was still there. Same intensity, same position. I thought about walking up to the window and looking inside, but that felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just wrong. So I stayed where I was. At 7 minutes exactly, I walked back to the generator and hit the kill switch. The engine cut out and the silence dropped back in. The office light clicked off the same second. Not a fade, not a flicker. Just off, like someone hit a switch the moment the generator died. I stood there holding my phone, staring at the dark building. The two were linked. Had to be. I didn't know how, didn't know why. But the timing was too precise to be coincidence. I picked up my phone and walked back toward the cabin, keeping my eyes on the office until I reached the porch. That's when I heard it. The bathroom fan. I stopped on the porch and turned toward the door. The fan was running inside. I could hear the hum through the wall, faint but unmistakable. I hadn't turned it on. The rules said not to use it. Old wiring. Use the window instead. I stepped inside and the sound got louder. Not just a hum anymore. It was irregular, wet, wrong, like something caught in the blades, or something dripping into the motor. I stood in the doorway and stared at the bathroom in the back corner. The door was still cracked open a few inches, same as I'd left it. The sound kept going, wet, rhythmic, off. I didn't cross the threshold. The fan kept running in the bathroom with that wet, wrong sound, irregular, like something caught in the blades or dripping into the motor. I stood in the doorway with the cold air on my back and my phone in my hand, and I didn't move forward. Probably should have. Probably should have walked in and flipped the switch and turned the thing off. But I didn't. The door was still cracked open a few inches like I'd left it. The fluorescent light was on inside. I could see the edge of the sink, part of the mirror, nothing else. The sound kept going. Wet, rhythmic, off. I stayed on the porch. Then a slap hit the bathroom window from inside. Not a knock. A slap. Wet and flat and heavy like a palm pressing against glass. I heard it clearly over the fan noise, distinct, deliberate. My chest went tight and I took one step back without meaning to. The bathroom didn't have a window. I'd been in there earlier. Toilet, sink, shower stall. No window. Just the fan vent in the ceiling and the mirror on the wall. Another slap. Same sound. Same force. I stood there with my breath going shallow and my phone screen lighting up my hand. The bathroom door stayed cracked. The light stayed on. I couldn't see the window because there wasn't one, but I heard the slaps clearly. 2 of them. Wet. Heavy. Precise. Then I saw the handprint. It appeared on the bathroom mirror, not the window, the mirror, visible through the cracked door. A print in condensation or moisture, fingers spread wide, pressed against the glass from the inside. The fingers stretched too long. Not by much, just enough that it looked wrong. Like someone had drawn a hand from memory and gotten the proportions off. A second print appeared beside it. I didn't see it form. I blinked and it was there. Same size, same wrong proportions. Fingers too long, palm too narrow. The 2 prints sat side by side on the mirror, perfectly aligned, like something was standing in the bathroom holding its hands up to the glass, mimicking what hands should look like. I backed up another step. My heel hit the edge of the porch and I stopped. The fan kept running. The prints stayed on the mirror. I could see them clearly through the cracked door, lit by the fluorescent bulb, condensation already starting to drip down the glass in slow lines. I didn't go inside. I pulled the door shut, locked it, tested the handle twice. Then I walked to my car, got in the back seat, pulled my jacket over my shoulders, and closed my eyes. Didn't sleep, just waited for morning with my phone in my hand and the cabin door locked 15 feet away. At 7:53, I was standing outside the Xanterra maintenance shop on Yellowstone Avenue, with my ID and direct deposit form in my jacket pocket. The building was single-story, painted brown, with a roll-up garage door on the left side and a regular door on the right. 2 work trucks were parked out front. I'd brushed my teeth in the cabin 3 bathroom that morning without looking at the mirror and left before 8. The regular door opened and a guy in cargo pants and a utility jacket stepped out. Solid build, salt and pepper hair, maybe mid-40s. He looked at me. "Logan?" "Yeah." "Blake Perry. Come on in." I followed him inside. The shop smelled like oil and sawdust and something chemical I didn't recognize. Workbenches lined the left wall with tools hung on pegboards above them. Shelves on the right held paint cans, tarps, boxes of screws and bolts. 2 storage cages stood in the back corner with padlocks on the doors. Blake walked to the first workbench and picked up a clipboard. "You done maintenance before?" he asked. "Some. Basic stuff." "Good enough." He flipped a page on the clipboard. "Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Lunch is 30 minutes. You check in here every morning, get your assignments, return tools before you leave. Don't lose tools. Don't leave a job half done without telling me. You got questions, you ask. Clear?" "Clear." He handed me a key ring with 3 keys. Storage room, supply closet, staff bathroom. Don't go in the cages without me. I track what comes out of there. I took the keys. Got it. Blake walked to the pegboard and pulled down a hammer, a screwdriver set, and a tape measure. He set them on the bench. "First job's easy. There's a busted shelf in the break room at the main lodge. You're going to reattach the brackets and make sure it's level. Take these, go to the lodge front desk, ask for Marissa. She'll show you where." I picked up the tools. Okay. When you're done, come back here. I'll have something else. I nodded and turned toward the door. Logan. I stopped. Blake was watching me with his arms crossed. You good? You look tired. I'm fine, I said. Just got in yesterday, still adjusting. He nodded once. All right, get moving. I left. The break room shelf took 40 minutes. The brackets were stripped and I had to drill new holes. Marissa, a woman in her 50s with a lodge polo and a name tag, stood in the doorway the whole time asking if I needed anything. I said no 3 times before she left. When I got back to the shop, Blake had another job ready. Tighten loose railing on the back deck of the snow lodge. After that, replace a cracked window pane in one of the employee cabins on Firehole. After that, fix a door that wouldn't latch in the laundry building. I kept my head down. Did the work. Didn't talk unless someone asked me something. By noon, my hands were sore, and I'd stopped thinking about the handprints on the mirror. At 12:30, I was back at the shop returning tools. Blake was at the workbench writing something on the clipboard. I set the screwdriver set on the bench, and he looked up. You eat yet? Not yet. Take your 30. There's a deli 2 blocks down if you didn't bring anything. I hesitated. Can I ask you something? Blake set the clipboard down. Go ahead. You know the real estate office on Canyon Street? The one with the cabins behind it? His expression didn't change. Yeah, what about it? I'm staying in one of the cabins, renting it short term. The office looked shut down when I got there yesterday. Is it still operating or? It's not, Blake said. Company that owned it went bankrupt last year. Building's supposed to be locked. Locked, I repeated. Yeah, why? I shrugged. Just weird. The cabin's fine, but the office looked abandoned, and the wiring's been acting strange. Lights flickering, outlets clicking. Wasn't sure if that was normal around here. Blake leaned back against the bench. Old wiring does that. Half the buildings in this town are older than me. Flickering's common. Clicks usually mean a loose connection or a breaker trying to trip. You lose power? No. Then it's probably fine. You want, I can swing by after work and take a look. No, I said quickly. It's not that bad. Just wanted to know if it was a town thing. It is. Blake picked up the clipboard again. Electrical issues just happen here. Don't worry about it unless something stops working. I nodded. Thanks. He waved me off. Go eat. At 4:11, I was back at Canyon Street. My car was still parked in the real estate office lot where I'd left it that morning. The office windows were dark. The 3 cabins behind it sat in a row with no lights, no movement. I walked past cabin 3 and kept going to the back corner of the lot where the gravel ended and dirt began. The generator was still there. Small Honda unit, pull cord, fuel tank. I crouched down beside it and looked at the base. A black conduit ran from the generator casing into the ground about 6 inches from the frame. I traced it with my eyes. It didn't run toward cabin 3. It angled left toward the real estate office. I got on my hands and knees and crawled underneath cabin 3. The ground was cold and damp. The underside of the cabin showed exposed floor joists, old insulation, a few pipes. I looked for the breaker box. Found it mounted on the left side near the front corner. I traced the electrical line from the box back toward the generator. It didn't connect. The line from the breaker box ran to a different conduit buried in the dirt, heading toward the street. The generator line ran separately, parallel to the cabin foundation, angling past it toward the office. I followed it with my eyes as far as I could see. It went into the ground about 10 feet out and kept going in a straight line, toward the dark office. I backed up and looked at the conduit more carefully. The plastic casing looked new, not weathered or cracked. The dirt around it was loose, piled unevenly along the trench line, like someone had dug it recently and filled it back in without packing it down. I crawled backward fast, scraping my shoulder on a floor joist, and got out from under the cabin. My hands were covered in dirt. I wiped them on my jeans and stood up, looking at the office. Dark windows, half-drawn blinds. No movement. I walked back to cabin 3, unlocked the door, and went inside. The overhead light was still on from this morning. The bathroom door was closed. I'd shut it before I left. The table sat in the middle of the room with the chair pushed in. I walked to the table and looked down at it. The rules paper was still there, same as before. But now there was something else. I walked to the table and looked down at the rules paper sitting there where I'd left it that morning. But there was something else now, too. An envelope. White. Letter-sized. Taped under the table edge. I crouched down and ran my hand along the underside of the table. The tape was thick, like packing tape, and it held the envelope flat against the wood. I peeled it off slowly. The adhesive made a long, ripping sound that filled the whole cabin. The envelope wasn't sealed, just tucked closed, same as the first one. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. Photocopy, not an original. The heading read, "Quit Claim Deed," in bold letters at the top. Below that, a bunch of legal text I didn't fully understand. Property description, parcel number, some coordinates. Then my name, Logan Gomez, typed under grantee. The date was 2 days ago, March 4th, the day before I arrived. There was a signature line under grantor, but it was blank. No name typed, no signature, just an empty line. My signature line was also blank, nothing showing I'd ever signed it. But my name was there, typed clean and official under the grantee section. I read it twice, then a third time. I didn't sign this. I'd never seen it before right now. And the date was wrong anyway. 2 days ago, I was still driving, hadn't even arrived yet. My hands felt cold holding the paper. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. It took a few seconds to load with the 1 bar of signal barely holding. The screen refreshed. Balance, $2,019. Pending transactions, 1. I tapped it. 3 Knox Holdings LLC. Pending withdrawal. 49 Poirot's, not VRBO, not Sierra Powell. 3 Knox Holdings. I stared at the screen. My chest felt tight. 2 knocks hit the wall. Sharp. Deliberate. Not the door. The wall. Right above the table where I was standing. Right where the envelope had been taped underneath. I stepped back fast. My hip hit the chair. The knocks didn't come again. I looked at my phone. The signal bar flickered. 1 bar, then none. The screen still showed the bank app, but the loading circle spun in the center and wouldn't stop. Outside, the porch light buzzed. A low electrical hum that got louder for 2 seconds. Then it popped and died. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. The porch was dark, no light at all. The bulb was out or the fixture was dead. My phone screen went black, not from the battery, it just cut out. I pressed the power button twice. Nothing. Held it down for 10 seconds. Still nothing. I set the phone on the table next to the deed and stood there breathing. It was 9:47 p.m. according to the microwave clock. At 10 p.m. exactly, the cabin went quiet. Not normal quiet. The kind of quiet where you notice the absence of sound more than you notice the sound itself. The hum from the fridge stopped. The faint buzz from the overhead bulb disappeared. Even the small creaks from the wood settling, gone. I stood in the middle of the cabin and heard nothing. Not the wind. Not a car passing. Not my own breathing. It lasted maybe 15 seconds. Then a low hum started again from the fridge, and the overhead light flickered once before going steady. That was it for me. I grabbed my duffel from the bed and started shoving things inside. Toiletries from the bathroom counter, charger from the outlet, the Xanterra paperwork. I zipped it halfway, slung it over my shoulder, and grabbed my keys from the table. The quitclaim deed was still sitting there. I folded it once and shoved it in my jacket pocket. I walked to the door, unlocked it, turned the handle, and pulled it open. The white pickup sat in the driveway. Headlights off, engine off. It was parked maybe 20 feet from my car, blocking the path to the road. Same truck that had followed me 2 nights ago. Older Ford or Chevy. Couldn't tell the exact model in the dark. Someone sat in the driver's seat. Just a shape. No details. No face. The figure raised one hand and tapped the windshield with a knuckle. 3 times. Slow. Precise. Same rhythm as the knocks from before. Tap, tap, tap. I stood in the doorway holding my duffel. My car was 15 feet to my left. The truck was between me and the road. The figure didn't move again, just sat there. I stepped back inside, shut the door, locked it, tested the handle twice. My hands were shaking a little. I set the duffel on the floor. I walked around the cabin and turned on every light. Overhead bulb, table lamp, bathroom light. I left the bathroom door open all the way this time. Then I dragged the chair back to face the door and sat down. It was the only instruction that matched what was happening. When things go wrong, sit still. Don't open the door. Don't leave. I sat. The bathroom fan kicked on. Same wet, irregular sound from before, like something caught in the blades or dripping into the motor. I didn't get up. I stayed in the chair. The heater clicked. Once, twice, 3 times in a row. The plug was still on the floor where I'd left it yesterday, unplugged, lying next to the outlet. Another click, this one from inside the wall. Then a faint tugging sound like something pulling along the length of the conduit buried under the cabin. The chair slid an inch toward the wall, not from me shifting my weight. I felt it move under me, a slow drag across the floor. I stood up fast and grabbed the quitclaim deed from my jacket pocket. I tore it in half, then in half again. The paper ripped loud and clean. I walked to the heater and shoved the pieces into the vent grate. They disappeared into the dark gap behind the metal slats. The heater flared. A bright orange glow lit up the grate for maybe 2 seconds. Heat blasted out, hotter than any space heater should go. Then it died completely. No hum, no click, just cold metal again. Outside, the pickup engine coughed. Once, twice, then it stalled out. A car horn honked somewhere down the street. Faint, normal. A dog barked 3 blocks away. Town noise came back in fragments. Slow, but real. I sat back down in the chair and didn't move until the sky started turning gray. At sunrise, I went outside and crawled under the cabin again. The ground was cold and damp. Dirt clung to my jacket and jeans. I pulled myself forward on my elbows until I reached the spot where the conduit ran. It wasn't plastic anymore. The black casing had melted into something fibrous, almost like rope, but wrong. The texture was uneven, organic, and it didn't reflect light the way plastic or rubber would. I followed it with my hand, tracing the line toward the real estate office. It disappeared into the ground about 10 feet out, same as before, but the dirt around it looked disturbed, loose, fresh. I crawled further, past the edge of Cabin 3's foundation, and kept following the line. It angled left, straight toward the office. I reached the office's back corner and found the breaker panel mounted low on the exterior wall. The metal door hung open. It hadn't been open 2 days ago. Inside, the panel was full of ash, gray, fine, like burnt paper. The breaker switches were intact but covered in residue. The conduit fed into the bottom of the panel, ending in a melted knot of fibrous material that didn't look like anything I'd seen before. I backed out fast, scraping my shoulder on a support beam again. Same spot as last time. I didn't care. I stood up, brushed the dirt off my hands and jeans, and walked straight to my car. I drove to the Zentera shop and parked in the small lot out front. It was 7:30 a.m. Blake was already inside, standing near the tool rack with a clipboard. He looked up when I walked in. "You're early." "I'm leaving," I said. "Leaving town, today." Blake set the clipboard down. "What happened?" "Nothing I can explain." I pulled the cabin key from my pocket and set it on the workbench. "I'm returning this. I'm not staying there anymore." Blake looked at the key. That's the Canyon Street place? Yeah. You have another place lined up? No, I said. I'm leaving. Driving out. I can't stay here. Blake didn't argue. He just nodded once and picked up the key. You want your last check mailed or direct deposit? Direct deposit. Same info I gave you. All right. He wrote something on the clipboard. You sure you're okay? I'm fine, I said. I just need to go. Blake looked at me for a few seconds, then nodded again. Safe drive. I left the shop, got in my car, and started driving west. By noon, I checked my bank app at a gas station in Idaho Falls. The 3 Knox Holdings charge had reversed. No explanation. No note. Just gone. I opened the VRBO app and searched for the Canyon Street listing. It wasn't there. The whole listing was gone. No Cabin 3, no Sierra Powell, nothing. I kept driving. That night in a Motel 6 outside Pocatello, I put the torn pieces of the quitclaim deed in a Ziploc bag and sealed it. I shoved the bag in my glove compartment. The pieces stayed warm for 3 days. Not hot, just warm. Like they'd been sitting in sunlight, except they hadn't. I checked them every few hours. Opened the glove compartment, touched the bag, still warm. On the 4th day, they went cold. Normal temperature. I haven't opened the bag since. I kept driving west without stopping except for gas and bathroom breaks. I didn't sleep in the car again. I paid for motels. Cheap ones, but real rooms with locks and lights and other people in the building. I watched my phone the whole way. 1 bar. No signal. 2 bars. No signal again. Somewhere past Boise, around 10 p.m. on the 2nd night, my signal jumped to 3 bars and stayed there. I pulled over at a rest stop and sat in the parking lot with the engine running. 3 bars. Solid. No flickering. I opened my messages. Ruby had texted me 6 hours earlier. You still in Montana? I typed back, no, left, heading your direction, tell you later. She replied in 30 seconds. You okay? Yeah, I wrote. Just didn't work out. I sat there for another 10 minutes watching the signal bars. They didn't move. 3 bars. Stable. I put the car in drive and got back on the highway. The Ziploc bag is still in my glove compartment. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if I should throw it away or keep it or burn it. So it's just there. Sealed. Cold now. And I keep driving.